Hello, Bear Trackers Animal Tracks Den here, and we're once again tracking a black bear. This time, the bear has come through some tall grass, and you can see where the grass has been bent down in the direction of travel, which is towards the camera. We're right on the edge of a drying up pond. So what do you think the bear came in here to get? You'll notice that where our friend the bear stepped, these plants have been mashed down, bruised on the undersides if you flip them over. You can see this break here. A lot of broken vegetation damage there. That's one track. And when you come down here, there's another obvious track there in the dirt. But what's not so obvious is a track here, where you can see some dirt transfer. Let's look at that up close. Looking really up close, you can see what dirt transfer looks like. These leaves should be clean, but you notice that there's sand on the top of them, where the bear stepped. This sand was carried forward on its foot from the last footstep. Trackers call that transfer. Here's another track that has some transfer on the leaves here, but you also notice that this piece of bark has been stepped on and pieces of it have fallen off, broken loose. Little pieces like that. Normally it would be all that color, but the fresh breaks there tell you this was stepped on recently. One thing you notice when you track black bears is that they trample vegetation quite readily. And that sign is very easy to see, like here where these grasses should have been standing up. They're all laid down. And the reason for it is obvious. If you look up, you'll see these blackberry vines here that the bear has been feeding in. But because the bear spent so much time here, they're all trampled down. Notice the ones that were not stepped on are still standing up. Now the bear has been in here feeding for quite a while. It looks like there's not many berries left. Notice how the branches normally stand out straight like this, kind of stiff, but a lot of these have been pulled down. That's because the bear was tall enough to just reach them and pull them towards it, and then it could get to the berries and eat them off the branches. But first it had to bring the branches towards itself. Another clue to look for is broken branches, or stems in this case, and leaves turned wrong side up. Normally the leaves should show this side up. If they've been damaged or broken, this side will be facing up. What's neat about this blackberry vine here is there's a log that has fallen into it, and this allowed the bear to get up there and get closer to some of the berries. This is how it accessed the log, through this vegetation here, which you can tell has been trampled down. This plant is called coyote brush, and it should be growing upright, but it's been stepped on. And you notice right here, breaks in the... Up close, here's the damage to the coyote brush plant, which is a type of shrub. You can see these breaks here. Notice the color difference between the broken bark and the not broken bark. This was stepped on and broken. Now if we were to follow this trail of trampled down grasses, we'd notice that it goes right over here and along the edge of the pond. Let's go over and see why. Okay, different angle on that trail. We were over there looking at it. Now you notice that it goes along a slight embankment here, and you can see where the bear made its way along that embankment and was on a slope. So it made a lot of sign going out there. It actually made its own trail. And the reason is there's more berry bushes in there. That's what it was trying to get to. Good food source. Just like humans, black bears sometimes lose their footing and slip. Notice here there's a slide mark leading into this bear track here. This is a hind track, and you can tell that there was some sliding motion because of this mark here, and also the soil that was mounded up on the outside edge of the track. There's a slight slope downhill towards the pond here. So the bear slipped in the mud and caught his footing. Notice here's a front track, and this one doesn't show much sliding action, but there is a little bit here. There's another track. Here's an older bear track in dried up mud. This one also shows some sliding action here, which has since been stepped on by a deer. But you see the sliding motion, and you see this mud that was curled up on the outside as the foot slipped that way. There's a log that's fallen all the way across this pond here, and pieces of the bark have been removed. I haven't gotten close enough yet to tell if this was done by the bear or not, but it is something that bears have a tendency to do. Here's something also interesting. Notice the slide marks here and there. This is getting to be a pretty steep slope here. Looks like the bear was having trouble walking on it just like I am, and slipped and slid right on the edge, possibly falling into the pond. Yeah, I've made my way all the way around the pond. Initially we were looking at the blackberry vines over there, and followed the trail of trampled grass, and saw the trail the bear had made on the edge of the slope to get to those blackberry plants over there. There's this trail, and you also note several slide marks. Including the ones I saw from the other angle. Pretty interesting, huh? Bears sometimes slip too. Let's examine the log. One thing that seems pretty obvious is that this log didn't naturally lose its bark. If you look up here, you'll see more signs that the bark was removed by the bear. Inside the log, there are grubs and things that bears love to eat that give them protein in their diet. Notice the holes here, especially the ones filled with this sawdust-like material, and these trails in the wood. Those are called galleries, and they're made by bark beetles. They lay their eggs in the wood, especially decomposing old rotting logs like this, and as the young ones make their way out, they eat some of the wood and leave behind frass, which is material that comes from their digestive system. So it appears that the bear opened up this log and fed on some of the grubs that were in it. Sometimes you'll find scrape marks in the wood left by the bear's claws, like this, right here. So it pays to look closely at things like this. If you look at some of the bark, sometimes you can find claw marks as well. I'll see if I can find one. Okay, I've put this piece of bark back on just to show you the scrape mark. That it wasn't too difficult for the bear to get that off there. And again, if you look at this edge, there's a claw mark right there at the tip of my finger. So when you make finds like this out in the woods, keep an eye out and examine them closely, and they will usually offer you clues as to who did it. It appears that the bear went quite a ways out over the water, probably 10 feet or so. It may even have fallen in. Of course, there are no tracks left in the water. What I did find is over here, some tracks coming out of the water. So I'm assuming at some point, either off the log or here where it slipped, that the bear fell into the water of this pond and then exited over there on the shallow end. So, in just a short little distance, we've learned quite a bit about black bears and their diet and some of their tracks and signs. Keep tracking. I guarantee you'll never run out of anything to learn when you're tracking. Always something more to learn. Even if you've been doing it for years and years and years, the stories are never the same. Every night they're different. See you on the trail.